overall categorization for lower body power exercise? Well, I think that you're inherently going to have to use your upper body most of the time. An arm swing is going to be involved in your jump. Obviously, you're carrying load in your hands for Olympic lifts. A dynamic effort method with a box squat, the bar is up on your back. So I don't know that there's ever anything that's exclusively lower body, even if your arms are just down by your side. A squat jump, you're still holding on to things. But I think you could start your breakdown and find where your needs are, find where your competencies are. Can joints get in the right position, absorb adaptive stress? What can you do with your lower body? You can squat and you can hinge, okay? If you're gonna do Olympic lift off the floor, you're probably squatting for a little bit until you get to mid shin, and then you're hinging. And then you kind of turn it into a jump, which is a squat. There might be a lot of value in that, particularly as you get all forms of extension: toes, ankles, knees, hips, upper back, etc. Okay. When you look at some of the kettlebell techniques, when they're done correctly, they're only a hinge. So you are losing some of the extension through the lower body. I just had my yearly connection with Al Vermeil for the holidays, and I know he would speak very loudly about favoring Olympic lifts for lower body explosive training versus kettlebell because you don't get the action in your foot. I don't disagree. However, when we look at kettlebells, you also have the opportunity to lateralize for things that maybe your body doesn't do well with your ankles or your toes or even your knees, because typically with that vertical tibia in the hinge, you might be able to hide from some knee pain. So maybe doing kettlebell swings instead of jumps might be a good proxy. But also too, kettlebell swings give you an opportunity to be very, very repetitive and cyclic. So you're going to be able to get into different work capacity components, whereas I don't know that the typical rep range that you would look to train power at the proper intensities are going to always work for kettlebells. They certainly can work for some people, but the heavier you go in any type of loaded lower body movement that is performed explosively, you are decreasing power as you go up the chain. So putting 100% of your intensity for an Olympic lift is not the most powerful lift that you can do with a clean or a snatch. So now when you talk about hinge and squat, and then the hybrid something like Olympic lift where it goes from 1 to 1, you could do them on one leg. Is there single leg kettlebell technique? Not really. I'm sure some goofball will probably demonstrate this. You can certainly do single leg training with kettlebell as your load, but that's where the kettlebell doesn't always matter. You certainly have option to do things like hops and bounds, and then how you progress those power exercises ranging from extensive plyometrics where are low to moderate intensity all the way up to depth jumps and repeated jumps, or even the fabled altitude jumps that maybe we saw from Adam Archuleta in 2001, where it would be a depth jump, but your action is to go up before you come back down and run your depth jump from there. So you could do that on one leg. Obviously, the height of the depths and altitudes would always change, but you can start to compartmentalize that way. And then the third piece you can do, which will then recalibrate how you look at intensities and demands, is when it is body weight or some type of load that either you release or allows you to move in multiple planes, anything you do when you jump or hop, you can be able to do that in multiple planes. So if I was going to jump in the sagittal plane, jump is 2 feet to 2 feet. I can go forwards, I can go back to the middle, I can go backwards, and then I can, by definition, skip the middle and then run maybe a sagittal pivot jump. Now my intensities here are very, very low, so I don't get gassed in terms of talking. But if I want to take that same jump and I do it really, really explosively, not how I'm demonstrating, again, if I'm in the middle, I have lateral, I have back to the middle, I have lateral, and then I can skip the middle. And if I just stay in here like this, in place jumps, which inherently are still very powerful, can be a great way to build volume for later training methods. That's maybe something that would live more in the athletic development piece. But again, now, what about transverse? And how do I kind of stay in place, just low intensity, so I don't get gassed? Here and here. Okay, so a 90-degree jump. Could I, demonstrate a 180 jump? Yeah, I probably could. You can start to get as creative as you want. Now, when you start to add complexity, and in this case, I don't think you should be penalized to the point that you're making it fancy. If there is applicability, such as basketball or team sports, where covering ground in multiple planes has high value. If it's a track and field athlete, this is probably departure, that might have value, so that you're not continuing repetitive movements. But anytime you start moving in the frontal plane and explosive movements, or the transverse plane, and then adding complexities, you will likely decrease your power output, but also probably enhance neurological benefit, potentially some connective tissue drills that have value. So there's a little room for everything. But squat or hinge, one leg or two leg, and then pick a plane. And then start to build out what you think makes sense. And there's no reason to be any more complicated than that.